Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, first let me introduce about myself. My name is Fitriatul Husnah and I'm from class 4B. In this occasion, I will discuss about why use strategy instruction. Okay, why use strategy instruction? Students with learning disabilities or LD constitute by far the largest group of students with special needs. Over the last 25 years, the number of students identified as learning disabled has showed a steady increase. Learner 2000 said that a learning disability affects nearly every aspect of a child's life and is a lifelong challenge. Intervention for students with LD cover many areas. For example, academics, self-esteem, transition, and vocation. Students with LD are often caught in a vicious spiral of school failure. Thus, the need to address the academic achievement of students with LD is critical in order to improve their academic outcomes. Okay, next is learning. What is learning disability? So, learning disability is cases that happen to children or students who have a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, which disorder may manifest itself in imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or to do mathematical calculations. Despite the fact that all of the definition of LD contain references to cause of LD, for examples are disorders in basic psychological processes, neurological origins, central nervous system and central nervous system dysfunction, and that difficulties in academic areas often described in medical language, for example, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. These factors rarely, if ever, play a role in diagnosis. In practice, LD is a category of underachievement, and students with LD are identified based on chronic and severe academic difficulties. And next is causes of learning disability. As you can see on the table, there are causes and example of learning disability. There are some clear trends in how LD has been approached that have direct implications for educators involved with instructional decision making for students with LD. Point number one is medical perspective. Historically, learning disabilities have been viewed as brain-based disorders. That is, the learning problems evidenced by students were thought to be due to some specific neurologically based deficit or disorder. For example, use of medical terminology such as dyslexia or dyscalculia to refer to problems in reading and math is common. Current research on the brain LD now uses extremely sophisticated tools and is beginning to shed further light on the relation between the brain and LD. Point number two is learning disabilities as an academic problem. Samuel Kirk, a psychologist with years of experience working with students with academic problems, coined the the term learning disabilities to describe those students who had difficulty in learning to read. This resulted in a change in perspective on learning problems. This perceptual motor approach shifted the focus from the medical aspects of LD to the academic, resulting in the creation of assessment instruments designed to measure underlying deficit and intervention programs designed to remediate that. The idea being that if the hypothesis underlying deficit in perceptual processing was corrected, the child would progress academically in a normal fashion. Point number 3 is behavioral and cognitive approaches. The first of this was behaviorism. This approach, developed by B.F. Skinner, was based on the theory that a functional relation exists between behavior, for example, reading and the environment. Behaviorists stress direct observation and ongoing collection of objective information. The application to LD lie in the notion that academic problems would be best attacked by changes in the instructional environment. From the behaviorist perspective, a highly structured instructional environment that directly addresses the problem area was necessary for academic progress. In the 1970s, cognitive approaches to teaching and learning began to influence the LD field. The cognitive perspective focused on the role of the individual in the learning process. From this perspective, the key is the relation between demands of the learning environment. For example, the text, instructional materials, and how the learner process information. Learning problems may result from deficits in cognitive process such as memory, failure to process information efficiently such as failure to use an appropriate or effective strategy, or combination of both. Next is characteristics of students with learning disabilities. Point number 1 is attention. Attention is a critical aspect of successful learning. It is also a complex and multifaceted phenomenon. There are 3 important aspects of attention. First, there is text engagement. To succeed in school, students must be able to persist at text. Students with LD are often off text in the classroom. Second, maintaining focus is a common problem among students with LD. Students with LD are often described as spacey, or not with it, or distractible. Failure to maintain focus has serious consequences. Students whose minds wander while reading a passage will have difficulties remembering information. And the third, difficulty with selective attention. The ability to identify important or meaningful information is also common among students with LD. Point number 2 is memory. One common concern among teachers who work with students with LD is that one day the child can readily remember important information. They've got it, but the next day, for no apparent reason, it's gone. The ability to remember information is obviously critical to academic success. For example, if students cannot remember basic math facts, how commonly used words are spelled, or content area facts, for example, Civil War battles or the parts of an atom, They will have difficulty progressing academically, and students with LD exhibit just these types of problems. Next point number 3 is attribution. The term attribution refers to the manner in which a student explains the cause of academic outcomes. For example, if we ask a successful student, why did you get an A on the science test? The answer would probably be that I got an A because I studied hard. In other words, the student attributed the cause of the good grade to studying hard. Unfortunately, students with LD tend not to exhibit this pattern. The students often attribute success to external factors that they do not control, such as luck or the test being easy. Moreover, students with LD often attribute failures to internal, uncontrollable factors such as lack of ability or text difficulty. Point number 4 is helplessness. Learned helplessness refers to a belief that efforts are unlikely to lead to success. In other words, a student believes that no matter how hard they try, they simply won't success. So therefore, there is no reason to try in the first place. A previous pattern of failure has led them to know that they can do it. They cannot do it. Caval and Furness, 1996, found that as many as 70% of students with LD may exhibit learned helplessness. And point number 5 is lack of coordinated strategies. Students with LD are unlikely to respond appropriately to the demands of an academic task by using an effective set of cognitive strategies. For example, they will spend less time studying and will not realize that it is necessary to slow down for difficult sections. They may be unlikely to recognize that they have experienced a problem because they will not be actively monitoring their comprehension. And if they do realize they need to correct the problem, they are unlikely to use an effective method to do so. Okay, next is why a strategy approach. Strategy instruction can meaningfully improve performance among students with LD and other struggling learners. Therefore, it makes sense that strategies be treated just like any other academic problems. If students with LD lack effective strategies for an academic task, then we should teach them effective strategies. There are several significant advantages of the strategy approach. First, it assumes that many of the problems of students with LD are due to the lack of or failure to use strategies. Thus, from this perspective, past academic problems were not due to an innate lack of ability or capacity, but rather to ineffective use of abilities. Second, assumes that if students learn effective strategies, there will be a significant increase in academic performance. Evidence for the strategy deficit hypothesis has been well documented. For example, in the area of memory, Torgersen 1984 found that when students with LD are directly taught memory strategies, there were no differences in recall between students with and without LD selected tests. Third, It assumes that strategies can be directly taught and effectively learned. Next is putting strategy instruction into the classroom. Note that although we focus on students with LD, the same basic approach can be used with any child who needs help mastering a specific academic task. For example, long division, writing an essay, and comprehending a story. The strategy instruction model that we will use, the self-regulated strategy development or SRSD model, is based on established theory and has been validated in over 20 years of research. There are many models for strategy instruction, however, few are as well researched and user-friendly, and few focus on both academic and motivational aspects of students' learning problems. Okay, the last is final thoughts. No single method is that powerful. However, mastery of the techniques we present can improve instruction and academic achievement for our students. Moreover, the model contains many components that are useful in and of themselves aside from their use in strategy instruction. In closing, we emphasize that the method we present is not the only way to instruct students with LD. Okay, I think that's all from me. I'm sorry for my mistakes. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.